This guy, Kasean Pryor, criticizes resentful Kentucky fans after Louisville's victory. This guy still hasn't learned that he shouldn't mess with Kentucky. Fans will have to wait a long time for the next game in the future. Let's get to the news. The rivalry between Kentucky and Louisville doesn't need extra fuel to ignite. But if someone decided to throw gasoline on the embers, that someone was Kasean Pryor. The Cardinals forward, already known for provoking the Wildcats before the matchup, provoked them again after the 96-88 victory, a result that ended Kentucky's 3-game winning streak and reignited, with full force, the tension between the two sides of the state. Pryor, who before the game had openly declared that he doesn't like Kentucky, decided not only to let the result speak for itself, but to reinforce the message. After the final whistle, he used social media to respond to messages and resentment from Wildcats fans who didn't take the defeat well. According to the player, his inbox was flooded with taunts and outbursts from fans unhappy with what happened in Louisville. Pryor's response? A touch of irony and a posture that makes it clear he's savoring the moment. It's impossible to separate this provocation from the historical context. The Wildcats-Cardinals rivalry has been one of the most intense in American college sports for decades. This year's matchup had additional ingredients. Mark Pope, in his second full season at Kentucky, tried to consolidate his project and prove that the program is still the state's powerhouse. Pat Kelsey, in Louisville, seeking to establish a new era for the Cardinals. The result not only gave the red side of the rivalry a breather, but also placed Pryor at the center of the narrative, as a villain to some and a hero to others. The detail is that Pryor didn't just talk. He played. On the court, he was part of a Louisville team that dominated the first 30 minutes, opening up a 20-point lead over a visibly disconnected Kentucky team that only reacted too late. The Cardinals' intensity, especially on the wings, dismantled the Wildcats' defense, and the fans' frustration was proportional to the expectation created around the investment of more than $20 million in resources and infrastructure under Pope's management. On social media, the reaction was immediate. Many Kentucky fans tried to justify the defeat with the argument of the early stage of the season or the circumstances of assembling the roster, but Pryor's words hit a sensitive point: pride. By mocking the emotional hangover of the Blue fans, he poked at a symbol of college basketball that doesn't accept losing to its rival even on a Tuesday in November. And when the provocation comes from a player who had, days before, inflamed the rivalry with contemptuous statements, the effect is multiplied. For Kentucky, however, the defeat has a greater symbolic weight. It was a reminder that, despite tradition, the team is still a work in progress. Pope has credit and time, but Wildcat fans are not known for their patience. The tone of the messages sent to Pryor makes it clear that, in Kentucky, losing to Louisville is never just another game. The provocation inevitably keeps the issue alive. And perhaps that's exactly what Pryor wanted. In the end, he knows that touching on Kentucky's pride is an effective way to secure his place in the history of this rivalry. In Louisville, he is celebrated as the man who spoke up and won. In Lexington, he is the new face of annoyance, the player who hasn't yet learned that messing with Kentucky is risking entering territory where the memory of defeats never fades. But college basketball thrives on these stories and the emotions that come with them. Kasean Pryor, with his provocative style, has just written another chapter in the Battle of the Bluegrass. And if the plan was to provoke a reaction, he succeeded. Because in Kentucky, the silence after a loss to Louisville is always the most deafening sound. Envier feedback, Payne's later race. Historico, Salvaz. Colin Chandler's shooting is working perfectly. And that's perhaps the phrase that best sums up the promising start to the point guard's second year at Kentucky. After a season of adaptation, limited minutes, and predictable fluctuations for a rookie, Chandler seems to have finally found his place, and more importantly, his confidence within Mark Pope's offensive system. The result is a player with a different attitude, a different fluidity, and an increasingly essential presence in the Wildcats machine. In the first 2 games of the 2025-26 season, Chandler did something few expected. He took on an offensive leadership role. He went 4 of 7 from three-point range in his debut against Nichols and 4 of 8 against Valparaiso a few days later. In total, he shot 53.3% from long range, the best on the roster so far, and averaged 14.5 points per game, leading the team. No other Kentucky player even attempted more than 8 three-pointers. That statistic alone speaks volumes about his impact. But Chandler's growth isn't just statistical. It's technical and mental. "I think an important factor is comfort," said the player, with the serenity of someone who has learned to handle the game. "You can shoot as much as you want on an open court or in practice, but it's different when it comes to games. The level of comfort is fundamental." And he's right. The difference is visible. Last year, Chandler played more than 20 minutes in only 1 game. Now, he has surpassed that mark in the first 2 games of the new season, with 24 and 23 minutes respectively. More time, more rhythm, more confidence. This comfort didn't appear out of nowhere. Back in March, when he started gaining more playing time at the end of last season, Chandler showed signs of improvement. He converted 12 of 23 three-point shots that month, a 52.2% success rate. And since then his shot has become a natural extension of his body, not an effort. This good form continued into the off-season and preseason, and is now solidifying official games. There's a sense of continuity, of technical and psychological maturity. The interesting detail is that this transformation came with a mechanical adjustment. Assistant coach Mark Fox played an important role in this process, teaching Chandler to jump forward on shots, a subtle change, but one that completely altered his consistency. In high school, he had a habit of leaning backward, which broke his balance. The correction brought stability and better body control. The ball, once hesitant, now flows. And the impact isn't limited to three-pointers. The new Chandler is a more complete player. He distributes the ball better, makes mature decisions, and defends with intensity. In his first 2 games, he totaled 8 assists and only 2 turnovers, a stark contrast to his performance last season. "I'm shooting well now, and that's opened up a lot of opportunities for me and my teammates," he said. "It's the confidence of someone who knows his offensive performance isn't just about scoring, but about creating, and that, for a point guard, is a game changer." Defensively, there's also progress. Chandler is positioning himself better, using his body and game reading to limit opponents. And of course, he's already shown flashes of the explosive athlete he always was, with a spectacular dunk against Nichols, a reminder that, even though his game is refined, he still carries the energy of the kid who wants to set the arena on fire. Perhaps the most symbolic aspect is the context in which this growth is happening. Mark Pope's Kentucky is a rebuilding team, full of new roles and evolving dynamics. In this scenario, seeing a player like Chandler flourish is a sign that the process is working. Pope has insisted on a more open style of basketball, based on rhythm, movement, and confidence in outside shooting. Chandler fits perfectly into this model. He's a practical example of what the coach wants the program to become. And when he says with a slight smile that, "As soon as I see a ball going, that's usually enough to get me excited," there's a captivating simplicity in that newfound confidence. It's the kind of phrase that reveals more than statistics. It shows a player who believes in himself, a program that believes in him, and a coach who knew how to guide him at the right time. What did the experts say about Kentucky's loss to Louisville? This is important to consider. Not every loss tells the same story, and the Kentucky Wildcats' loss to Louisville, while painful, seems to have more nuances than the score suggests. The national reaction made this clear. Analysts, even while pointing out flaws and concerns, unanimously stated that it's not time to panic in Lexington. On the contrary, The prevailing sentiment is that Mark Pope's team is still adjusting, but possesses enough human and technical resources to react strongly, especially with the imminent arrival of an elite reinforcement from the 2026 class. Criticism after the 96-88 loss revolved around a defense that conceded too much and an offensive execution that oscillated between brilliant moments and worrying lapses. Mikael Brown Jr. and Ryan Conwell's combined 53 points exposed offensive weaknesses, but also highlighted the Wildcat ability to fight back even when behind, reacting on 2 occasions after being more than 18 points down. This resilience, for many analysts, is the true starting point for evaluating Kentucky. Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander of CBS Sports emphasized that Louisville had a perfect night, playing at home with the energy of a rising roster and a coach who revitalized the program. Norlander summarized the sentiment. Louisville was on fire. If you're from Kentucky, you played away against a top 15 team and still managed to react. There are lessons in that. Parrish went further, praising the Cardinals' rebuilding process, but pointed out that Kentucky is still clearly the program with the highest coaching ceiling. David Cobb, also from CBS, offered a more detailed analysis. He acknowledged that Kentucky's defense is still far from ideal consistency, but highlighted the team's offensive potential. With the return of Jalen Lowe, recovering from a shoulder injury, the team is beginning to regain fluidity. Kentucky is a work in progress, Cobb wrote, but it showed resilience and offensive capability against a rival that is now among the most efficient in the country. On the podcast A Field of 68, Jeff Goodman, Robbie Hummel, and Matt McCall echoed this reasoning, pointing out specific flaws, such as Otega Oa's subpar performance, but without dramatizing the situation. Hummel emphasized that the atmosphere in Louisville was insane, and that the simple fact that Kentucky managed to remain competitive until the end already demonstrates maturity. McCall got straight to the point. They can't win if Oa is forcing plays, but this team still has important pieces to fit together. Jalen Lowe needs more minutes, and Mark Pope needs to adjust the rotation. It's a process. And it is precisely at this point that the factor that most excites analysts comes in. The imminent arrival of Jaden Quaintance, a future lottery pick and one of the biggest prospects in the 2026 class. The young power forward is considered an immediate impact talent, a player who can alter the defensive and offensive balance of Kentucky from the first minute on the court. His combination of wingspan, versatility, and game reading is everything Pope needs to solidify the system he has been trying to implement since the beginning of the season. The experts' prediction for acquaintance is clear. He will be a game changer. And that changes the tone of the analyses. Instead of seeing the loss of Louisville as the beginning of a collapse, many see it as part of the learning process for a team in transition, about to gain a reinforcement that could transform it into a real title contender. The feeling, therefore, is twofold: caution, but also expectation. Mark Pope's Kentucky is still searching for its identity, but there is conviction that the talent is there, and the confidence too. The program is going through a period of adjustment, but with Colin Chandler experiencing a historic phase, the return of Lowe, and the arrival of Jaden Quaintance, the Wildcats may soon look much more like the team their fans have been hoping to see from the beginning. For now, as the commentators at Field of 68 summarize, it's not time to press the panic button. It's time to adjust, mature, and wait. I want to see your opinion now.